My name's Chris Bond. I'm the R&D Director at Hardy & Grays. So for my sins in a former life, I manage design. And I manage design. I'm glad to see that some of the things I look at trends actually doesn't mean I'm a sado in the office. Actually, nice to know that some people are doing it. Some of the things we do, we guide trends. Sometimes we try to be trendsetters. Okay, I'm going to run through this pretty quickly because one of the things you need to understand is where that fits. And don't let anybody tell you that a designer sits on his own or her own, right? I passionately believe that design takes you from inception through to it being made. You can make such a difference to someone's life and any product if somebody somewhere asks you the question early enough. The number of times we come to a project on the industrial aerospace side because somebody wants to use metal and suddenly realizes they can't. Where if they'd involved you at the beginning, the product might have been, the bit they're buying might be more expensive, but fitness for purpose, end costs are a lot less. But that design has to be part of the whole business. And unless you integrate it, it doesn't work. I know finance is important and all that as well, but don't underestimate design in any way, shape or form. Okay, right. I'm going to have to do a quick, brief resume so you understand the business and where we've come from and where we're going, so you understand what part design plays in that. So I'm going to go through this at a canter. I'm going to try very hard not to be boring Bob. Try not to talk down to you or underneath you. If any of you feel passionately that I am, please put your hand up and I'll move on. Okay? Right. The business. Harrison Sheldon, we're owned. We have no, if you look at Hardy & Grays, it has 4 brands: Hardy brand, Grays brand, Chubb brand, and HAC. Hardy & Grays Limited has no strategic benefit really to RDS or Heritage Fishings. I could bore you on a lecture on that, on why we're part of it, but you just have to believe that we are. It's privately owned, and it's a great thing to be because our owner is a very kind, passionate man who has lots of cash. It's not to be underestimated. Okay, I'm Hardy & Grays. If we look at the different brands within that, okay, and forgive me for all of those of you who do not fish. Okay, but we need to understand that fishing is very important to us, okay? And I'm going to give you the sort of analogy for those, a lot of you, I'm sure, ski, yeah? So we split it, and if you look at all those different types there, there's fly fishermen, there's coarse people, fly people, sea people, carp. A person who stands on a rock on the northeast with a gale blowing in his head wants a big rod and a totally different rod to someone who's fishing in the Azores with a beautiful seawater thing. So there's carp, and coarse is a catch-all for anything that's not fly, not sea, or carp. The reason I'm telling you this is because I say that the technology and some of the product is similar, but it's not the same. So if you're skiing on a downhill, right, get to the bottom as fast as you can, you're on skis, okay? You're going to Nordic cross-country ski, you're on skis, but they're different skis. Different cliffs, different things. So you still wear ski boots, but not quite the same. So it's, and we dice and slice the market significantly. So Hardy, top end, very, very aspirational brand. We ran into the problem where all our customers were dying, so we had to alter our trends and get people into it. Grays, we do everything under Gray. We do fly, we do sea, we do carp, and we do coarse. So if you have a Hardy's is positioned here, you have a Grays, a slight overlap. Chubb, does anybody carp fish here? Thank the Lord for that. Tent dwellers, live in tents and fish, right? Wonderful people, do it differently, okay? These people put the fish back, they kiss them, they take pictures, they name them, okay? Again, that's a separate lecture, and I could bore Britain. Hardy Advanced Composites, just need to understand it is for, we do industrial and we do military. There is a bit of video at the end for all of those who go to sleep. It'll make you up. It's gratuitous violence, but it just makes you remember the lecture, okay? But it is something we're involved in. So that's the way that we are set up as brands. I, for my sins, am responsible for all new product development across those brands. And I've got to be honest, I love my job. It's fantastic. Every day, there are times when it's not. But I love my job. And the reason is, right, now I've given you a brief resume, is this business, and the Entrepreneur Forum will know this, that Richard Sanderson came some time ago. And when he came, I was a thin, dark-haired youth. That's only 6 years ago, right? We've grown the business from 4 million to just under 13 million last year, okay? And some of that was inorganic growth, but some of it was, well, most of it was organic. Okay. What does that mean? What does new product, you'll hear me talk about NPD, and that's new product development, okay? Hardy's always been known for innovation. We did, and for those of you who don't fish, this will be totally boring, but I'll move on quickly. We did the first railing with ball bearings in it. We've been going since 1872. We used to make wooden reels, right? The first fixed spool with an auto bail arm, we did that. The first ever carbon fiber based fly rod, yada, yada, yada. We go on and on and on. We can give you first up to the gazoos. What is important in that is that they were firsts. They were inventive. Somebody sitting, fishing, said, this is a difficult thing to turn. I'll put ball bearings in it. And today, we used to make the ball. We used to buy ball bearings, have a little brass cup, and turn it over by hand. We make reels with a royal warrant, and people are asking for reels with royal warrants on them now because of this trend with the wedding and that we make the same way today that we made in 1921. And people pay a fortune for them. Why? Because they are traditional, they are made in the UK, and they are a limited number of reels. And people pay for that. So, and the trend that you've just heard about is absolutely, and we have enjoyed a very significant trend in that, okay? But we do it. We also make reels that catch 300-pound sharks, and they're not made in a traditional way, but they come from the same house. Okay, we talked about the growth and what did new product paint, right? I think that they're plain to see for themselves. In 2010, 35% of our sales revenue was new product. Now, some of that's substitutional because something's old and we need to replace it. Something is new because it's new to it's an addition to a brand, and something's new we've never done before. This year, we're predicted almost 40% of sales, and that's budgeted. We have a new material on the market, which we've done quite well with. We've just won America is 60 to 80% of the world fly fishing market. Okay, just have to accept me. That's why they're 9-foot rods, because the Americans don't use meters, right? So everybody all over the world, you fish with imperial rods because the Americans buy most of them. And the point is that the 9-foot for a 5 rods, which none of you know is the de facto standard. And a British company has never, ever won the award. Not only did we win the award, we won it by a record margin. And people actually, one of the guys wrote, I was telling Terry earlier, is, when I realized the rod was British, I didn't want to give it 20 out of 20, but I thought I had to anyway. So not only did we win by a record margin, we won with a reluctant audience because it was a blind test until the end. Okay? So, and I think, I don't know about you, but those numbers are, when I first came to Hardy's, which was a long time ago actually, and Richard Sanderson came and he put me into new, and he said, I want sort of high levels of new product development. I told him if he thought the team and I could do more than 20% a year on year, he was smoking dope. Who was smoking dope? So, and there's some really good things in that. But as I say, I was young and slim when I started this. And I can hear you thinking, how the hell did we do that? How did we manage those levels of new product introduction? Okay? And this is what I think you're here to. I managed design. And I'm going to put a few points up, which I'm going to run through, and then I'm going to maybe give you a bit of feel to it. I have organized my department. There's 15, including me, in my department, which is one hell of a department for new product development. But you can see what it's done. Without new product, we would not be where we are. We came from a history of innovation and being small to a history of innovation, and keep your eye on them. We are ripped off all over the world. Everybody takes our stuff and goes and copies it in China. I'm sure some of you, we get parts made in China, we get parts made in Korea, we get parts made in Taiwan, we make in the UK. But what we do, and I'm very passionate about this, we design and develop in the UK. And we decide where we're going to make it, and when we decide where we're going to make it, we tweak that design. People mold in China differently to the way they mold in Korea, tweaks, different. But it's important that you're just not designing a glass, you're designing a glass for somebody who sits on a riverbank and, you know, is dressed in green. But also that's going to be made in Taiwan. And that's different if it's for a guy, a tent dweller, because you'll have a big mug, because you'll not have a little one. You have to remember your target audience, but you also have to remember where it's being made. And design encompasses all of that. So, and also, when somebody says, I've smashed my mug, I need a new one, customer services department say, well, you shouldn't have stood on it, or, you know, what did you do with it, etc. And design helps with that. So design goes right across the spectrum. It's not just somebody sitting somewhere, okay? So I'm organised by fishing discipline, so I get people who fly fish are called fluff chuckers because it looks like a bit of fluff. So we have a bit of, you know, we have the guys who coarse fish, they maggot drowners. So we have that sort of general, you know, and the tent dwellers in the corner. So we have that sort of banter in the office, but it's good and it's positive, right? I have centralised a CAD, CAM, and I'm an engineer and I've got a couple of engineers who are working for me, right? And we are a central hub. And what we do is we take that passion and the design that somebody's had a good idea about and we make that happen. It doesn't just happen, but we're part of that. And we try to stay true to the design philosophy and the product that's being made, okay? We hold, and that sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Cross-fishing discipline meetings to share ideas and best practice. They can be hell, right? They can be great, they can be wonderful, but the carp guys always think that their stuff's best. The fly guys think that their stuff is best, and why the hell would you live in a tent for a weekend catching 3 fish when you could go? And once we get across that sort of, we share best practice. We share, oh, well, I've got a guy in Korea who can do this. Oh, I can use him for that, okay? We hold monthly meetings, which really are hard, because then you've got your marketing, you've got your sales, you've got all of the business pieces. But if the market isn't ready for your product or isn't happy for your product, you're not going to sell it. What are you going to put behind it? Okay? And believe me, designing creatives, and I think most of you in this office are creatives, is not easy. Okay? Trying to get someone to understand that you do not see the world as they see it, because that happens. Because what will happen is you'll think of an idea, it's bloody obvious to you, isn't that fantastic? And then you have to sort of get a boring old fart like me to understand what you're on about and what you want. Some of my guys actually live with a pad next to their desk and also a pad next to their bed at night. And they wake up and they have ideas, okay? So when I start talking about timescales, because I'll be finished very shortly, I never ask people to be creative to a timetable because it doesn't happen, does it? It just doesn't happen. I've been walking through the centre of London and have someone said, quick, take a photograph of that. Get your phone out, because it's inspired them. And they get back to the office and we talk about it and we have an idea, okay? But it's very difficult sometimes when someone who's creative comes to you and says, look what I've done. And what you're basically saying is, they say, look at my baby. And first of all, you've got to tell them it's ugly. And then you've got to tell them that not only is it ugly, it's not even going to pass the 11 plus, and it certainly isn't going to go to university. That can be very difficult and depends who you see and how you tell them. But you've got to make sure that they understand that you're not saying it's ugly because it's their idea. You just don't see its fit. And sometimes you're wrong. Yes, I know, I have to admit, well, apart from at home, my wife is always telling me when I'm wrong. But sometimes you're wrong, and sometimes there's this belief that something should move. And then sometimes somebody says, look, I've got a great idea for a green mug with blue spots, and they keep coming back with it. And eventually you have to say, it really is ugly, and I'm going to have to shoot it if you're not careful. So, but you have to manage that, because creative people are different. They are. people are creative. I mean, you know what it's like. I bet you have some cracking discussions about what's good and what's not good, what's good in fashion and what's not in fashion. I mean, I can't get out of the house if my daughter's out being told what I shouldn't be wearing and what do I think I'm wearing. Okay, so, and that's important. And that's what these meetings that we have do. We take the prettier babies and we decide who would buy them, where we would buy them, and where we'd actually give birth to them. Okay? And that's difficult. So one of the things I'm doing is installing what we call Tollgate. Okay? And it's not rocket science. Something at the end you will see is rocket science. Tollgate is not rocket science, but you would not believe how many companies don't do it. When we were 3 million, new product development was 3 guys in a shed, right? We're 13 million. We're going to be 14, 15, 20 million. You can't do it that way. And you've got all the... how much stock do you buy? Is it a really beautiful baby? And we're going to sell thousands of them? Or are we only going to sell 100? And we get it wrong. We get it wrong. We do get it wrong. And we are not perfect. I don't pretend to be perfect, just in case you think I do. But the company isn't perfect. We have had some cracking disasters. And may all your disasters be little ones, because you'll have them. And if you don't have them, you haven't done anything. Because there are times where you have to stand up and say, I think that baby's ugly, but so many people are telling me it's not, we're going to have a punt. I'm going to have faith. Okay? And sometimes you're rewarded, and sometimes you're not. Okay. So I have this whole plethora of feedback. And sometimes it's like treacle, you know, you're knee deep. It's almost like you're knee deep in a swamp when you're getting attacked by alligators and you remember that the reason you were there is actually to drain the swamp. You know, you're so deep in this and you think, what am I going to do? But it's great because you get so much feedback and so much innovation, okay? Then from those projects, you have to decide what's low-hanging fruit. Is there something somewhere that if we did that would give us more benefit, more bang for your buck, as what my boss keeps saying. Bang for the buck. Fish where the fish are. Which what he's saying is, let's not spend 100,000 on something that's going to give us 200,000 return. Let's spend 100,000 on something that's going to give us $1 million return. You know, let's look at the bigger projects. It's easy to say, but you also have to bring a clear structure to it, right? I'll use a racing anomaly, right? You all have deadlines. And I've already said I don't ask people to be creative to a timetable. But once we've got an idea and we're running with it, I want a timetable. I'm a boring old fart. I've got board projects. We've got money. We've got resources we're adding to this thing, right? Take example Formula One. If Ferrari do not have their new wing on for Sunday's race day, nobody says, hang on, we'll race tomorrow. They don't do it, do they? They say, tough Ferrari, get out there with what you've got. We have race days. We have race days where we launch new product to the UK market, to the American market, to the Germany market. And these are key dates. And what is my job is to make sure that we don't do too much and we focus on what is best for the business. 5 years ago, we never killed a project. Why? Because they were all everybody's babies. Nobody was, I'll not kill your baby if you don't kill mine. It's not on. It's the business. You've got to pick them. But you've got to do it as a team. You've got to do it as a team. And I go on back to this, right? Design is not someone sitting somewhere at night thinking this good idea and then passing it on. You've got to take it right through to the finished thing. Okay. It ensures functional involvement. What I mean by that is it's buy-in. When I say, when have we got to place the order for the product? It's so many week lead time. We've got to place the orders by then. I need purchasing to say to me, Chris, you're coming up to your deadline. Is the product ready? There's a date to meet. And if it's not ready, we miss the race day. Sometimes we miss the race day. Sometimes you have to put the resources in to make sure you don't miss. It depends on the responsibility. But design doesn't live in a bubble. It doesn't live in a vacuum. It lives with all its brethren in the business. And we're not silos, okay? It's not up and over the wall to marketing or up and over the walls to sales. I finished that, I'm off. Everybody has to work together. Everybody sits around the table and we discuss things. What it means we've had to do is less projects, but we have to do them better, okay? I've also got a problem with markets, okay? America has their requirements. A good example is we opened Germany, and within a year it was making a profit. And we all, yeah, great, fantastic, aren't we clever guys? Right, we launched in Germany without the main product. Germany doesn't fly fish. Germany, major product is predators, fish that eat fish. Pike, zander, okay. Fish that eat fish, right? Big things, toothy critters, right? So we developed, suddenly thought, oh, bloody hell, that's a bit of a oops, wasn't it? So we developed a set of predator, or what we called it, prowler, tackle, £500,000 worth of sales in the first 6 months. Then we could say we were clever, but we thought we were clever earlier on. And we said to you Americans, just, you're going to have to wait, guys, because we're going to do this, right? And that's how we've grown, picking the bits and through it. But in order to do that, we had several, what I call gurus, that said, this is where you should do it. This is how I make my kit. And then we took that and we process it. And what we bring is the everyday angler can go in, everything from the everyday angler to the very well-heeled angler, can go in and say, I want that because that's the best. We have a term for them, and I am one of them, and they're called tackle tarts, right? Because what you do is you go and say, oh, that's nice. I'll have a new one. And you spoil yourself, and you go and have, and there's all sorts of different areas within it. We subdivide it, but you have to be aware, and I have to balance America's demands upon Germany's demands, upon all the other. There's all sorts of demands, okay? And that's what you have to do. But what Tollgate does is we break it down into what we call several gates, and they're time fences for me. They're time. So the race day, you can work back quite easily. When we first started it, we realized that everything we were doing was late. So we had to sort of reassess it. But that's what you do. And all you're doing is managing the creative. So when the creative has come through and said, we'll have a couple of goes at that, yes, I'm happy, then we let it run. And for the moment we say, we are committed to this design, we are committed to the idea and all the products underneath that, that's when I start banging the drum. That's when I turn into real boring Bob. Okay? That's how we do it. I hope that's, I mean, I could bore for Britain on how all the background details to that, but saying things like we pick the appropriate projects, it's obvious, isn't it? It's not clever. We didn't do it. Saying that we make sure there's a clear structure so we tick the boxes when they're done, it's not clever. We didn't do it. Things like I have a CAD file, so everybody had all their CAD on their own. Stop that. I want a vault. I want it locked away. Your resources, designs, anything that you have is worth money. Some of my competitors would die to see what I've got in my cupboard that is on the shelf for another day. It's unbelievable what we can do. And just to finish, a bit of gratuitous violence, if it's going to play.